Because what I'm hearing, there's a drive in you to do things that are good for people.
I just think that in the spur of the moment, I told you, I just decide. But this sounds, you don't put this in if you don't want, but I just think that God tells me. I know it sounds ridiculous.
Not at all. Not at all.
But when I decided to come to the Isle of Man, and I just on the spur of the moment, I said, I had no intention, I'd never been to the Isle of Wight before.
Okay.
But I like islands.
Yeah.
And I mean, I made a list. Someone asked me how many countries I'd visited on a shoestring. And I made a list, and I think there's 25 countries. And that's not just visiting a day. This is staying in the country. And all on a shoestring. Because I've never had any money. I've got no, you can tell by my room, I've not got any money now. But I don't care. But I think I just had these ideas come into my head, and I just think that they're put there.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that God tells me it's going to be fine. You're going to be all right. and I know people poo-hoo the idea, and I don't mind because everyone's got their own ideas and their own thing. But I mean, it just happens that how I'd never been. I'd been in Strange Ways in Manchester.
Yeah.
Because there was a group of us that used to go, and we had that. It was only really a little meeting where the children and their parents used to come in, and often very upset before they went into visit in the prison. And I'd been there a few times, but that was when I lived in Bolton. I lived in Bolton for about 20 years.
Yeah.
Or 15 years or something. I have to work it out. But so when I came here, and it was Camp Hill had a visitor centre, and they if you remember, I don't know if you remember, that was for the young offenders. And I volunteered to go, and it was only serving tea and coffee in their little visitor centre at the top of the hill. And you see, I'm a sucker. People say to me, Joan, will you do this? And I always say, okay. But I went to help volunteers there, and the girl who was in charge of the volunteers, the coordinator of the volunteers, she was a journalist, and I'm trying to think of her name. Anyway, she was very nice and very, very efficient, and I'd been there. I'd been there about 2 months, or maybe less. And she said to me, "Oh, Joan," she said, "can I see you after?" So I said yes. So she said, "I've got the offer of a job on the mainland, writing." So I said, "Oh, that's a shame." I said, "because this is going so well." She said, "I want you to take over." I said, "I can't." I said, I can't use a computer. I've not got a computer." I said, "You do all these lists, all these instructions, the rotas, a nightmare." I said, "I'm sorry." And so she said, "Well, you can learn." So I thought, computers were just beginning to come into schools when I left. But there were, there weren't. There might have been one computer in a school.
That's my memory of school. There was one, and it was in a glass cabinet.
That's right.
Yeah, and there was a.
And I no, I was, and I'm useless. I'm the most stupid person in the world when it comes to anything what I call technical. But by chance, again, I happened to see in the paper that they were having a government scheme called BEST, B-E-S-T, and it was for people who were not computer friendly or had no idea, and it was going to be held. These classes it was free, and these classes were going to be held in, I can't remember the street. You know where the court is in the Isle of Wight?
Oh, yeah.
And you know when you walk up,
Yeah.
and you eventually can come, there's a hotel.
Yeah.
Calverts.
Well, Calverts,
yeah.
that's it.
And then Watchbell Lane.
Just before you come to Calverts, I think there were office buildings, and that's where it was held. So I went along, and there were 3 or 4 people, and it was absolutely brilliant because there was 1-to-1, and you were on your own, so it didn't matter how stupid you were, because the people know when to laugh at you, and you had a book, quite a big. It wasn't a hardback, but it was very, very step by step, and you could do it in your own time. And there was somebody there who, if you couldn't understand, they stayed with you. It was absolutely fantastic. And then they said, and now you go home and you practice. I said, I haven't got a computer at home.
Practice it. Yeah.
But again, you see, he's listening to me. My eldest daughter, that's her with a wig on, a white wig. She died 4 years ago.
Okay.
No, 5 years ago. She was brilliant. She was so good. She, at that time, she was working at BT headquarters in London.
What was her name, Joan?
Ruth.
Okay. Yeah.
She was working at BT headquarters. We were very, very close.
Yeah.
In London, and she rang me up, and I said to her, and we were talking. I said, "You're not going to believe this, Ruth." I said, I'm learning how to use a computer." And she said, "Yeah, but you haven't got one, Mum." She said, "But hang on a minute." She said, "I'll ring you back." So I waited. She rang me back. She said, "Here," she said, "a computer is out of date if it's a month old." She said, "We're all the time having to get up-to-date computers." She said, "How about if I send you one of our old computers?" But she said, "It won't be old." She said, "It'll only be a few months old at the most." And, I said, "Ruth," I said, "I never even thought about that." She said, "Well, you can practice on it." She said, "and then see what happens." So this great big thing arrived, and it was huge. And luckily, one of my friends, he said, and I didn't know that he knew that, he said, I can set it up for you, Joan." And it was there when I lived, before I came into these retirement homes. He was there, and I had a spare bedroom, and I set it up as my office. And it took me ages, and I was pretty useless, but because doing the rotas, it was really, really
Yeah.
difficult because people didn't want this day or didn't want this time, and then they were away then. But anyway, I managed it. And so what happened was I became able, and then I was able to take on this job and this at Camp Hill. And then one day, the keys, I had to get the keys from Albany. Thank God for my car. All this time, I've had my car, and without it, I couldn't have done anything. And that's why I'm so frightened now about having this eyes going. It's only a cataract, but you have to wait 2 years for cataract operation, apparently. But anyway, I went to Albany to get the keys to go open Camp Hill. And as I got there, there was this lady, she was only young. She had a push chair. There was a little one in the push chair. There was a 2 or 3 year old standing on the bars, I can see it now, of the push chair, holding on like that as she was pushing. And then she had one of about 5, maybe a bit less, because they would have been at school. So there was 3 little children, and she came and she said, yes, she was visiting. She upsets me now to think of it. She was visiting, and she said, the children, she said, can they please use the lavatory? Now I know that there was a lavatory just inside the door.
Yeah.
I know that because I've been. And they said no. She said, they're desperate. She said, look at her running, kicking up and down. Go to the hospital. They said it's. She said, where's the hospital? She said, you go outside, you go to the crossing, you cross over, then you go then and go. And she said they'll have wet themselves by then. She said, please. So I said to the prison warden, I said, look, I said, why can't she just go there? I said, if I come with her, I said, you can't be so hard-hearted. I said, she said, I left Liverpool, she said, at 2 o'clock this morning, and I had to go to Crewe.
Yeah.
And she said, I had to change at Crewe. She said, I had to wait. And then she said, came down to Southampton. She had 3 little children. And I was so mad.
Yeah.
And I was so angry. And I said, God forgive you. I said, that's terrible. I said, she said, rules are rules. I said, yes, but rules can be broken or be bent. I said, in a case like this. And I was so incensed that I said, haven't you got anywhere where she can wait? No, she can go to the hospital if she wants.